I will, without any delay, hand over to Nick Hepworth to present the next part of our programme. Dr. Nick Hepworth is the Executive Director of Water Witness, with over 25 years of global experience in the water sector as a regulator, a researcher, consultant to donors and a civil society activist. He'll be telling us more about the programme. Nick, are you able to turn on your sound and video? Everybody
Thanks, Tim, and thanks, Beatrice, also. I'm delighted to be able to provide you with an overview of this programme, where it's come from, and what our intention is in the future with it, on what seems like a really important week for accountability in the world. The work you're going to hear about is the result of a lot of hard work in its preparation and design and planning by a large number of people, and it's going to take me too long to thank them all, but there's a considerable amount of work with many of you gone into preparing this programme. In terms of where it's from and why we're doing it, Tim, next slide. So over the past 10-15 years, there's been a growth in new approaches in the water sector, which have tried to address the challenges in governance and service delivery that we all understand and know about. They have focused on increasing or helping communities raise their voices for improved services and governance, and helping governments respond to those. And they've included the types of citizen complaints mechanisms for water supply, sanitation and hygiene services, community scorecards, citizen report cards, and community councils. Some amazing examples of work with communities affected by water pollution problems in Zambia, Tanzania and elsewhere by our friends at Shahidi Ramaji and Action for Water, really helping communities impacted by water resource problems to document those and to activate a response from government and elsewhere, duty bearers responsible for implementation of water law. Elsewhere, this work has involved improving the security of water tenure for communities and water users, particularly smallholder farmers, recognising that in many places water law and policy is progressive, but it's not implemented. And so this work has been about helping those affected by water law use it in their favour. Another branch of this work has focused on research and evidence and analysis at a policy level, including on budgets. And there's some really exciting examples of budget analysis in the water sector to pose the question, are we spending enough on the right things in order to make progress towards sustainable water management, development and water justice? And the slide here shows an example of that work from Tanzania. Really powerful examples of what's been called social accountability monitoring. So what binds this work together is this engagement which tries to raise citizen voices, to bargain for change with civil society and improve government responsiveness to that. What we've found over the past 10 years, both at Water Witness and our partners globally, is that this work is generating really exciting results and impact. We're also learning important lessons and seeing common challenges and common knowledge gaps. So the Accountability for Water programme broadly is about working with stakeholders across the sector to address those knowledge gaps, address the common challenges, share lessons, and build a community of practice, policy and research so that we can harness the impact and potential of stronger accountability for water. Next slide, Tim. So here, this slide is a brief definition of what we think accountability is about. Really, it's about clear rules and responsibilities and the ability to review and report on those and their performance, and to react constructively, whether that reaction is through debate and dialogue in sector review processes and dialogue processes, or whether it's through judicial process or government review. Really what we tried to do here is to come with a an accessible definition of accountability that we could all work with. And there's more on this in a paper that we've published on the website here. Next slide, Tim. So we talked about the development and gestation of this programme. I guess we can go back to an event hosted by Shahidi Ramaji in Tanzania in 2015, where, based on their experience of accountability monitoring in Tanzania, they brought together partners from across Africa to share lessons. That's when we recognised the great potential and the benefits of working together and sharing knowledge on this topic. So big stepping stones included Stockholm World Water Week, then another Think Shop in Tanzania, where we met many of you in Dar es Salaam in 2018. And that was important because the donors saw the potential there as well and said, if you guys can come with a programme of research and action to address these common challenges, we will fund it. And that led to a programme of collaborative development over the subsequent 2 years, including stakeholder engagement across the world and in Africa, a systematic evidence review to see what knowledge is already there, that's led up to the design and programme launch where we are today. Next slide, Tim. So importantly, it's a partnership. Many people have made an important contribution. This work is being led by PASGA with some support from Water Witness and other partners. Really important to say that we're trying to bash down the systemic inequalities across the water sector by making sure that there's equitable balance between northern and southern partners in this partnership, and there's a balance of decision making and influence. And so the partners you see here hopefully represent that. Next slide, Tim. We mentioned an evidence review. What we tried to do, or what we did do rather than try, is to look at the global evidence on this topic. And to do that, we categorised accountability interventions into 4 types. And the model you see here explains that. So the interventions across the top. So we're categorising accountability interventions into 4 types. Firstly, over on the left, social accountability monitoring. So the types of initiative I described, led by civil society and NGOs, to work with communities to track performance on water, wash service delivery, water resource management. The second tranche of work or area of work is budget analysis and tracking. PETs, national and regional tracking of budgets for water security. The third area is research-led participatory analysis and advocacy, speaking truth to power, trying to get evidence from the ground and the voices of grassroots voices into policy debates for positive change. The fourth area there is statutory accountability mechanisms, and this reflects the importance of government-led accountability interventions initiatives. Many governments, we find, are very keen to listen to be able to better listen to their citizens and water users in order to respond in better management and services. The evidence review tried to explore the missing middle here, to explore the evidence. Just click, Tim, and then we've got a graphic, I think. Yeah, what is the evidence around the outcomes of these interventions and the factors that determine their impact and performance in terms of improving wash services and water resource governance towards SDG 6. Briefly, what we found is that there's evidence out there in the world in evaluations and papers. There's a global map that Tim's about to show you. This is where the evidence lies. It's a global evidence review, so we've got evidence from Europe and North America as well as other places to learn from. You'll see there's pockets of a lot of research and evidence on this, which probably reflects where a lot of the practice has taken place so far, but also that the evidence review was in English rather than in other languages. So there is evidence out there. If you go to the website, you can click on any country and it'll tell you what evidence is available, and you can learn from what's already known. In terms of that, next slide, Tim. In terms of the outcomes of accountability interventions, very positive. 80% of the evidence suggests that positive outcomes emerge from these interventions. So in terms of implemented law and policy reform, better inclusion, stronger voice, community inclusion in decision making, all those types of positive outcomes are mapped. So really important result there. Tim, next slide. And again, what we did is, by mapping the factors, we tried to tease out what determines where and when these interventions work or not. And there's a lot of complexity to dive into here, but again, we've got a report which maps all this out. But it's really important for the likes of us and you who are trying to use accountability to drive change. This is gold dust. It gives us a window on what to think about when we design and implement and support these types of programs. And a couple of quick examples. This change doesn't happen overnight. So if we're going to design programs, don't design a year-long program. It needs to be much longer to enable the bargaining and tenacious engagement by civil society required to get change. Other examples, the way that donors support this is really important. If they take too much control away from local actors, it doesn't have legitimacy, tends not to work. It's also important that the people leading this work have the skills and experience and training to enable them to not just understand and articulate water issues, but to navigate the complex political economy changes and community engagement skills that are required to drive change in this area. Importantly, lessons not just for civil society and donors, but for government. One important finding here is that the more ambiguous the institutional arrangements, the harder it is to affect accountability. It's obvious, really. In some countries, you've got 3 or 4, 5 organisations responsible, government entities responsible for pollution control. It's very difficult to affect accountability when you've got all these confused responsibilities. Also questions about the media. So there's lots to dive into there, and there's a report on our website which sets all the evidence out. So there's a positive role for accountability interventions. How they're supported, delivered is important. Understanding the community dynamics of where they work and gender is important. And the institutional setting are all important factors for whether they work or not. We've got some insights there, but a lot more knowledge is needed. And that's what this work is about. Next slide, Tim. So as well as the evidence review, the team, the wider Accountability for Water team, went and spoke to stakeholders globally, regionally, and in some specific countries. What we found was that the demand for this knowledge and this work and an appetite to build up accountability for water was very significant. Not just from civil society and researchers, but excitingly from government bodies themselves. As I said, there's a real appetite that we found for government to be able to understand and listen to and respond to water users and citizens on these issues. As well as looking at demand, the stakeholders were also engaged in programme design. And it was brilliant because we'd gone along with our ideas, and the stakeholders said, no, change them. We want to be involved in this research. We don't want PhD students. We want to be involved in doing the research. So there's a big breakthrough in the way that program was designed because of that. And what we've come with is a program which will deliver professional research fellowships. So I'll talk about that. So there are 3 broad areas for the program. Generating knowledge through research, knowledge that's relevant to stakeholders working on water. Communicating that knowledge in ways which people can access and benefit from and use, and ensuring that there is impact and legacy from this program. And I'll talk about those briefly before handing over. The knowledge generation piece is what I mentioned. Rather than consultants or PhD students, we're going to be supporting professional research fellows working in institutions on these topics. Civil society, government, donors, researchers who are working in the sector so that we can equip them with the research to do in their workplace. There'll also be some large-scale multi-country studies involving them, but led centrally by PASGA and Water Witness, which will probably be large-scale questionnaires and key informant interviews to get some compare notes across countries. The outreach, so the communications, will be delivered through, next slide, Tim. A couple of examples of what professional research fellowship research could look at. There's lots of exciting examples that came up. But for example, in Kenya, there was an idea that they could take a look at how budget monitoring across the water sector in Kenya could be used to advocate for progress and better resources and transparency in that resource use. In Tanzania, a brilliant example of a government-led piece of research, which was about looking at how the consumer councils around water supply and sanitation in Tanzania's cities are functioning and what can be done to strengthen their role in improving services. So many great examples, and we can talk about those later further. The communications will be driven through the research fellows themselves, learning events and networks, knowledge products which will be set out in a way that people can access and use, and an online knowledge hub which has launched this week, the Accountability for Water website. So within that, some innovative ways of communicating the knowledge products. And finally, in terms of the outreach and legacy, we'll be developing with you strategies at various scales, national, regional, global, about how we can strengthen accountability for water, looking for new sources of funding for this type of work, developing an active practice and research network to take this work forward into the coming decades, to put accountability at the heart of better governance and better services for vulnerable people in Africa and beyond. The subtext to this, and I'll be very candid with you, is that what we want to do with the Accountability for Water programme is to build up a stronger evidence base and a design for a long-term support facility which will enable stakeholders in Africa and beyond to enact stronger accountability. So a facility which combines finance, legal advice, technical support, so that we can focus donor and other types of support towards government and civil society looking to improve governance for water security for all. I think that's me. I am delighted to be involved in this launch today. A lot of hard work, a lot of thoughts got into it, and please engage. This is for you. It's to benefit from, and we're delighted to work with you in the future. Thanks to the team. I'll hand over now to, that old quote. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So let's work together, move forward. Not slowly, let's move together. If you want to be involved, there's the opportunity of being a professional research fellow, and Joanne will talk about that, what that means. There's the opportunity to host a research fellow in your organisation, and target them towards practical questions of interest to you and your strategic partners. There's the opportunity to be an advisor on this work at a global or national scale in the countries of operation. And there's the opportunity to be a global learning partner, to work with us over the next 3 years, to put your questions up and to benefit from the knowledge being generated. I think that is me. So I'll hand over to the next speakers.
Thank you, Nick. Yes. So just really great overview. Really appreciate that.